Hello everyone, my name is Ariel and welcome to my September wrap-up. I had to think about that for a little bit. I can't believe we're in October already. So in the month of September, I participated in the Avatar: The Last Airbender readathon. Okay, so me and Berlioz wanted to say really quick, I look like a mess. Yes, and Berlioz is upset about it. I'm sorry. But I wanted to, first off, I mentioned it later in the video, but I just want to start off saying that this readathon was hosted by Maylis over at Maylis Reads. You should definitely go check her out. She is adorable. I love her. And I'm going to link her channel down below, so definitely subscribe. And yes. And my goal was to become the Avatar. It didn't happen. Also, let's just get into it because I got a lot to talk about. I was part of the Air Nomads team. We did not win. The Earth Kingdom won. So congratulations, Earthbenders. I guess we were just too much of pacifists as Airbenders to like actually go for the competition. But without further ado, I will get started into my wrap up. So the first book I'm going to talk to you guys about is the Tea Dragon Society. Now I've already talked about this and spoken about this on my channel because I finished it early on in September when I was recording my book haul, and so I spoke about it then. And I absolutely love the Tea Dragon Society. I think it is so adorable. First of all, I'm in love with these end pages as well. So pretty. The artwork in this is phenomenal. I really want to get all of Kitty O'Neill's other like picture books. This, if you don't know, is about two young girls who learn kind of the ancient art of making tea from tea dragons, and they're just kind of friendship, and it's just really cute. My favorite part of this, besides the artwork, is actually like the very end. They have this little like tea dragon handbook where it kind of tells you like about tea dragons, how to take care for them, and then the different types of tea dragons. I mentioned on my my tag video that I would love to have a hibiscus tea dragon because honestly, so fabulous. Prefers a warm climate with high humidity and becomes sluggish at cold temperatures. Hibiscus tea dragons are second only to chamomile dragons in terms of easygoing nature. They love to eat, #queen, relatable, and especially to share food with their owners and have more adventurous taste buds than other dragons. They are extremely sociable, and owners of hibiscus dragons often report that they find themselves more compelled to try new foods and talk to new people. So that's the one I would have by choice. Although I was discussing it with Glenn, and we came to the decision that Berlioz, if he were a tea dragon, he'd definitely be the Jasmine tea dragon. Berlioz, come here! You want to make an appearance? So if you don't know, this is my cat Berlioz. He's very persnickety. Hi! What are you doing? I love you. But he's basically got the personality of the Jasmine tea dragon. They have a great deal of poise and elegance. They are probably the most self-conscious out of all the dragons. They are watchful and intelligent, though this doesn't always translate to any extra survival capability, which is definitely Berlioz. With keen, beady eyes, they quickly understand and interpret what their owners are doing during their daily routine, which makes it much more easier to interfere and be a pest. Because he needs all the attention. He's so lazy, like he doesn't give a crap about me like when I'm going about my day, but as soon as I start filming a video or I'm talking on the phone and he's not the center of attention, or like I'm just focusing on something else, then he has to get in my business 100%. Makes guttural screeches and noises when scared or displeased, so that is definitely Berlioz. But I loved the Tea Dragon Society. I even asked Glenn, come here. Tell them which one you would want. Because didn't you say you had a couple different ones that you'd want?
Oh, yeah.
Here, you can take... So which one would you want?
I picked either the Earl Grey. It's very, very, very fancy looking. It's very affectionately referred to by enthusiasts as little grandpas.
And was that your personality-ish?
Yes, that's very much my personality. Also... If not that, I would get the, is it the ginseng? I believe so. It's curious with a keen sense of smell and are liable to follow a scent for hours and get lost.
Which one?
It's this
that one. Those would be your two picks?
Those would be my two picks.
Aw. Don't we wish we all could have a tea dragon?
Yeah, they're cute.
Alrighty.
Goodbye.
Thank you for your cameo. Give it up for Glenn.
Yay.
Oh, and then if it wasn't clear, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read for the readathon was for the prompt for Appa, and that was to read a book with a lovable pet. And for that I chose Meddling Kids, which is basically kind of like a Scooby-Doo-ish sort of gang where they solve mysteries. They used to do it when they were kids. They had this like they called it like the Summer Mystery Club or whatever, and they would solve mysteries when they got together on their summer vacations, and their last kind of mystery kind of left them all scarred. Like, they saw some things, like normally it's just a guy in a mask, but they definitely saw some real like magic, witchcraft, dark things going down, and none of them really talked about it because they did end up catching someone, and the police was kind of like, oh, this is an easy scapegoat, like, but they realized that they probably caught the wrong person. So it's kind of haunted them throughout their days. One of their original gang members actually killed himself, so there is a content warning for suicide. There's a lot of content warnings for this, actually. So they get together after all these years, and they try and like go back to this last mystery to see like what they missed, and because they all kind of are convinced that they like caught the wrong person. This one also has like a dog, which is like the Scooby-like character. His name is Tim. So I enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. There are some things that I really enjoyed about this, but there are some things that I kind of question it giving like it a super high rating. Number one, because there is a female-female romance about this, but it kind of feels a little bit weird just because the author is male, and you can kind of see that he's writing about the woman's like physique through kind of a male gaze, I guess. So while I appreciated the romance and I liked the 2 characters, it was just kind of odd at times. And one of the characters, after this, as he's grown older, he actually submitted himself to a mental institute because he is seeing hallucinations, and like I said, this kind of thing has haunted him. And because I don't know too much about that kind of like mental illness, I don't know how good, I just really don't know what the kind of picture it paints for the people that were, the other people that were in the hospital, as well as there's some questionable things with like transgender identity as well. So like that's what I liked it, but it's kind of hard for me to like fully like be all for it. So just know that those are things that are in this book, but I thought the mystery aspect of it was fun. It's very campy, very cheesy. It's not meant to be taken super seriously because it does kind of have that like goofy, I would say if you've ever seen Cabin in the Woods or Tucker and Dave versus Evil, it's kind of that kind of campy, like ridiculous horror novel, like plays into a lot of stereotypes. So it's really not meant to be taken seriously. It's like a fun read, and like just, it goes all out. It doesn't hold anything back. It's just like, you think it's bonkers, it is bonkers. So I read this for Appa, and the dog was beautiful. He was one of the best parts because you got to hear his thoughts, and he tried to like, in his own way, communicate with like the people in the group, but they had no idea what he was talking about, and he's like, God, these people are so stupid. So I liked that. I also, the character that committed suicide, he is haunting the one male character who was admitted himself into the mental institute, and so they have like kind of interesting conversations. It's all going in his head, but you kind of wonder if this character is real. So I don't know, there was a lot of things I liked about it, but some questionable things that I would like to glean more input from other people. So that is what I have to say about this book, and yeah. Oh, I forgot to say the Tea Dragon Society was the book that I read for Aang, which was a book that I thought would make me happy. So moving on to the Earth Kingdom prompts, I read The Wild Robot, which was for Toph, which is to read a book with a chosen family. This is about a robot who is a part of a ship that was shipwrecked and gets washed upon this like island that is inhabited by a bunch of wild creatures, and she ends up getting turned on. That sounded weird. She's a robot. So she is trying to learn how to survive. She has no survival skills. She's used to being, her job function sounds like she was meant to be like a maid or some sort of like household robot. And it's about this robot just trying to survive in the wild, and she ends up adopting a gosling and becomes its mother and slowly befriends all of the animals in the forest. And it's just her struggles as a mother. This gosling has to learn how to fly, it has to learn how to swim, and she can't do either of those things. And it's kind of sad because the gosling's like, Mom, come with me. She's like, I can't. I wish I could, son. I liked it, but I only gave it, I think, a 3 out of 5 stars because I feel kind of ridiculous for saying this because it is like a middle grade, like juvenile novel, but the book, the writing was not that sophisticated. It was a lot of like, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. It was a lot of telling, and we don't really immerse ourselves in the story. Like, it was cute, but just the writing, at least for me, was, I guess, maybe too, I don't know what the right word is to say. it was just too simplistic, which I've read a lot of middle grade that has really good like world building and characters, and like while I still enjoyed it, I think the writing just wasn't it for me because it was just like da 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 da, very repetitive and not too interesting or too complex, which again feels silly saying this because it is meant to be a kid's book, but I was just saying I have read other kids books that have more complex writing, and so I was just not too impressed with this. However, I think a lot of young kids would really like this. I know I work at a bookstore and this is a required reading for I think like 2nd or 3rd graders, so apparently it does have like a good story and the ending leaves off on a cliffhanger. There's a second one, so there's that to glean from it, and yeah. The next book that I read for the Earth Kingdom was for Suki, and that was to read a book with a beautiful cover, and so I read Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funk. This, not only does it have a beautiful cover, but I didn't even knew what it looked, I knew what it looked like naked. It has like Pan right here on the front, and then Ophelia in the book, but this is so pretty. I didn't even know this was underneath it, so it was just like double beautiful, double gorgeousness, and I tried to show it off in the my first like book haul, like the kind of illustrations that go throughout it, and it just wasn't working because it was the lighting was too blown out. I'm gonna try and see if I can find like a good page of illustration. It goes through the story, then it also kind of goes through this old fairy tales that kind of explain the existence of the labyrinth and how it came to be, and how this whole like fairy tale of like how the princess is supposed to come back to the kingdom, but this is like part of like the beautiful artwork that goes along with it. So if you've ever seen the movie Pan's Labyrinth, it's pretty much exactly like the movie, which I thought it might have been a different story, but it's pretty much just the movie in a novelization form. Although it does have like these kind of like fairy tales like sprinkled within of the lore of Pan and the Labyrinth and like the kingdom. So it is about Ophelia and her mother who remarries this captain, and they're in like a war right now in Spain, and the captain is really cruel. The mother is pregnant with the captain's son, and she's very sick right now, and Ophelia is visited by these fairies and by the fawn Pan, and they tell her that she is this long lost princess and she needs to basically complete like these 3 trials in order to return to the kingdom and save her mother. So it's a really sad book. It's a really sad movie. So but yeah, so I thought it was really pretty. If you haven't ever seen the movie, I would definitely recommend reading the book because it's beautiful and because the story, it's a fairy tale. So I think I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So I really enjoyed it and I would recommend. The next book that I read was for the prompt for Azula, which was to read a book with an interesting character, or an interesting villain, I mean. And for that I read Scythe, which is a reread for me. I know this is a very popular book on BookTube, and I read this because I'm pretty sure the Toll is coming out this month, so I wanted to reread this one and then read Thunderhead because I hadn't before. And the villain in this is probably like one of the worst like characters I've ever written as far as like evilness. If you want to hear like pure evil like trash and like the darkness of humanity, this definitely represents that. So that's why I picked it for Azula. Like I said, this is already a reread for me. This is set in a futuristic world where death has been conquered, so all natural forms of death have been eliminated, and people can live for as long as they want. They can turn the corner and kind of reverse their age if they want to, and the only way to be killed is to be gleaned by a scythe, and scythes are part of like the separate kind of state, I guess, or like law forms of where they have the ability to kill people, and they are charged with killing people. Like that is their duty, to control the population. And so each kind of scythe has their own philosophy on like what is right and wrong when it comes to killing people. And it's crazy because you get to see, the interesting thing about this is that they each are required to write journal entries, so you can really get into the mind and the psychology of each of the characters, including the villain. So yeah, I already read this. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this, and I know a lot of people out there have too. So the next book that I picked up was for Sokka, and that was to read a book with rich world building, and for that I picked Thunderhead. Obviously, having read Scythe, I knew the Thunderhead world, or the world that we're kind of set in, so I knew that the world was very complex, very interesting, especially the politics. So that is why I chose Thunderhead. This blew my mind on a couple different parts. Everyone was telling me that it gets crazier and crazier like than Scythe, because Scythe is pretty twisted. And for a while I was waiting for it to happen. I was like, there was a couple of moments where I'm sure that we were meant to be surprised, but I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of get like how we got here. Like I knew reading up to it that it was going to happen, but the last like 3 pages of this, I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. This makes me so excited for the Toll. I loved this book so much. Again, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. So because it takes off where Scythe leaves off, I can't really speak too much about this without giving away any spoilers, but just know that we are introduced to a new character whose name is Grayson, and I loved his character arc. I thought it was really interesting. We get to see a lot more of the Thunderhead, which is kind of like the ruling body of this society. It's just really interesting. I loved it, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm so excited for the Toll. Okay, so here's the book that we're gonna have to spill some tea about. This is the Rise of Kyoshi, which is the group book for this readathon. Every group or Bender group was meant to read this, and I actually DNF'd it. I got to, I think my bookmark is still in here. I literally have this much left, but I couldn't bring myself to finish it, and here is why. Okay, I tried picking this up so many times. I brought this to work with me every single day. And I even tried to read it at home, but it just felt like work trying to get through it. First of all, we follow in the beginning, we follow so many different perspectives, and it doesn't tell us whose perspective we're following, so it was very disorienting going into it because I didn't know which character we were talking from, who was who at this point, because it throws a lot of new names at us that we have never heard before, and just kind of like doesn't really like give us any bearings. It just kind of throws us into it. And in the beginning, so Kyoshi, if you don't know, is the earthbending avatar. So through the cycle, it goes through every, I don't know how to explain this unless you haven't seen the show. But every bender has like the avatar through their cycle. So water, earth, fire, and air. So that's the cycle. Anyways, so this follows the Earth Kingdom avatar. And so because they know, because of this cycle, that it's supposed to be an earthbender that's the avatar, in the beginning they're trying to figure out who it is. They're trying to they're like testing all of the kids in the Earth Kingdom to see who has the abilities, and basically the avatar has the ability to bend or control all 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. And the avatar is meant to like bring peace and balance to this world because that stops any kind of nation from getting too much power. So we see Kyoshi in the beginning, and the test that they're doing, she kind of almost passes, but because she was born she's homeless and she doesn't have a family, the way that they were doing it is they were offering toys of like prior avatars to see if they had any sort of like spiritual connection, and she ran away before the test was complete, and because they were getting desperate, they kind of just chose someone who resembled the previous avatar as far as like knowledge and ability. So they picked him to basically be the avatar, and they've been training him. So then it fast forwards to when they're 17, they're like teenagers now, and he's the person that they've chosen, whose name is Yoon. He is still like doing his like bending training, but he hasn't been able to do any other bending besides earth bending. He hasn't water bended, he hasn't fire bended, and he hasn't airbended, and yet everyone is still convinced that he's the avatar, and somehow they've gotten everyone else convinced in the world that he's the avatar, even though there's been no proof about it. And also we follow his perspective. I'm gonna give you a spoiler, so if you don't want to know, skip. I guess I'll put a timestamp, but we're following his perspective. Like, we hear his storylines, and my clock is going off. Okay. So the person that they thought was the avatar, his name was Yoon. There is one of the masters, I think he is the earthbending master. He begins to suspect that Kyoshi is actually the avatar, and he's like, oh my god. He's like, I kind of knew we had the wrong person the whole time, but now I'm like convinced. So he takes Yoon and Kyoshi to like this spiritual mountain, to like this like spirit, spiritual mountain, and asks like the spirit to identify which one is the avatar, because the avatar has like a connection with the spirit world and can talk to spirits. They are the connection between the spirit world and the living world. So he goes to the spirit and he's like, spirit, which one is the avatar? And it's like Kyoshi is the avatar, and then the spirit is like, okay, well, since you only need one of them, I'm definitely gonna eat the other guy, Yoon. So we've been following Yoon, we get to know his character, and he dies like within the third of the book. And I'm like, why did we even need to hear from his perspective if he was legit gonna be murdered? And not only that, but the airbending master, who used to be like lifelong friends with the earthbending master, who kind of set them up to be killed, whichever one wasn't the avatar, he ends up dying too, and like he doesn't care. Like, this is supposed to be your lifelong friend, and then so the one who everyone thought was the avatar and the airbending master were both killed. And I'm like, am I supposed to care about these deaths because you really didn't set them up for anything? And then Kyoshi runs off, and because she can't trust like the people that she's with, because he's gonna spin the story something else. Like, oh, it was an accident that Yoon died, but Kyoshi's the avatar, so congratulations, and she doesn't want to train with him because obviously he just killed her friend. So she runs off with the firebending master. She has a daughter whose name is Rangi, and she's part of like the Fire Nation army, but they're also friends, so they run off on the airbending master's flying bison. This is like, if I'm saying it's confusing because that's how it was reading it. So they run off together because they don't want to be caught, and she doesn't want to deal with the earthbending master, and she's actually out to kill him. So she knows that her parents, like through like this journal, I guess, used to be part of like this group of bandits, and so they go and find this group of bandits, and she wants their help to kill the earthbending king, or the earthbending master that killed the would-be avatar. And like, avatars are supposed to be lawful, avatars are supposed to be like held up with respect, and yet she's throwing her lot in with these like bandits. And for the longest time, since she's the avatar, you're waiting and waiting and waiting for her to like get any sort of training. They don't do any training at all until like maybe a little bit before I started reading, and then like the whole like ending of the book is being rushed, and I really couldn't care. They have to like go and like work for this guy to free some like prisoner who was part of like this gang, and then once they rescue him, that guy turns on them. I'm gonna stop talking about it because it's just like a mess. It was so messy. It's so confusing, and I did not care. Like I tell you, it was work to try and follow along and care. There were so many characters, so many characters that they threw at us that I had no idea who they were. I couldn't remember who was who. They all kind of sounded the same. The one positive thing, Kyoshi and Rangi also kind of have a relationship. They have been friends for the longest time, and it was very mildly hinted at that Kyoshi has a crush on someone, but you couldn't tell if it was Yoon, who was the guy that got killed, or if it was Rangi. And they never really kind of give us any sort of romantic tension or any sexual tension or a will they won't they sort of like situation that would have kind of saved this book, because the action wasn't interesting me, a romance would have interested me, but there wasn't any sort of that tension or that sort of like yeah, like will they won't they, or like I should but I don't want to, like I have a responsibility, like what would my, I don't know. And then all of a sudden they just like make out, and I'm like, you could have like built this up so much better than how it was. It's just, I feel bad because I know Mayless, who is hosting, by the way, she's the host of this readathon, I will link her down below. I know she really enjoyed this. She picked this for the group book, obviously, because it has to do with the Avatar world. And she liked it, but I could not make it through. I literally had like very little left, but I just decided to put it down. I wasn't enjoying it, and it was making me angry. And then the last book, because I pretty much failed the readathon by not doing the group book, and I didn't have time to finish the other prompts, I ended up picking up City of Bones by Victoria Schwab. I got this at my library because it's getting spooky season, and I wanted to start reading more like ghost and like spoopy books. This is a middle grade book, and the writing from this is compared to The Wild Robot. While they're both still juvenile, this one is very more complex. There is not much at stake at this, and I think the ending was rushed a little bit. But if you don't know, this is about a girl named Cassidy, and her parents basically write books about like haunted places throughout America, and they end up getting a TV show. And so one of the first places that they're visiting is in Scotland. And so while that's going on, Cassie has had a near-death experience in her life, and from then she's been able to see ghosts and kind of go beyond the veil into the spirit world. And she also has a ghost friend named Jacob, and they've been best friends ever since she's kind of had this near-death experience a year ago. Anyways, when they move to Scotland for the show, she ends up meeting another little girl who has the same ability to see ghosts, and she teaches her basically how to set ghosts free or banish them from the spirit world and let them move on. And so it's just a really cute, like very spooky book. I think it's perfect for kids. It's definitely not, it's not too scary. It's perfect for kids. But anyways, my camera's about to die, so I'm gonna finish. Yeet. Thank you guys for watching. That was my wrap up. Thank you for watching. I need to finish. Sorry, it's such a mess. And my camera died. Goodbye. Bye.
I can't.